It was just a tremendous religious experience that God never abandoned us at ground zero. He was always there through his cross.
Father Jordan appealed to Deputy Mayor Joe Loader to have the cross preserved.
I said, Joe, I want this cross to be preserved. I want to be evacuated from there and erected and put on the site of ground zero. They say that God never abandoned us at ground zero. We need to have a sign of faith for the rescue workers. Right now, there's a lot of horror and people are upset and emotional problems when one person's thinking about suicide. We have to have a sign of God's presence.
There were other signs of encouragement as well. Lower Manhattan is more than just the financial center of New York City. It is also a neighborhood. For months, residents of Tribeca and Battery Park City had been displaced from their homes, but they still rallied around their neighborhood.
So after working 12 hours a day and trying to work your way back to your car, I mean, you know, you're pretty beat up. So remember, I couldn't catch a bus ride up or anything this particular day, so I started walking. And by the time I got to Canal Street, I would tell you, I was lucky to make it that far. So I start across the intersection and there's this humongous roar. It goes up like you're in a Super Bowl and somebody just kicked the winning field goal. So I'm looking around and think, well, maybe the governor or the mayor or, you know what I mean, or Jamie Lee Curtis or somebody's there. And here, it's me. I realize it's me. I'm standing, Rick Ostrander, in the middle of the intersection, and I got 2,000 to 3,000 people just cheering.
Those people, you know, they don't realize, you know, how big a part they played in the morale of the men that were coming in out of that hole. And then all of a sudden, you know, you'd go from feeling depressed and lonely and tired, and you know, all of a sudden you'd feel, wow, man, you know, you'd get a big boost.
So all of a sudden your feet don't hurt so much anymore, you know what I mean? You tip the hat back a little bit, you walk a little straighter until you get past them, and then you're like...
Letters from children, cheers from residents. They equaled momentum. They equaled progress.
It slowly started to come together. You know, I remember when we cleared West Street, when it was finally clear, and you were able to get a gator or a four-wheel drive through there. I thought, wow, we really accomplished something.
That's the way we did it. One cut at a time, one piece at a time, one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time. And that's the way we did it.
The cut steel was taken off-site, loaded onto barges, and taken here, to a closed landfill on Staten Island. The FBI would comb through every piece looking for clues and recovering even the smallest bits of human remains. The name of the landfill is Fresh Kills. And as the site was emptied of debris, a problem arose. 3 months into the project, engineers discovered that the south and west slurry walls had moved in about 18 inches. That 18 inches had the makings of a catastrophe. The World Trade Center complex was built inside a 16-acre, 70-foot-deep concrete bathtub designed to hold back the Hudson River. Before the towers were built, the slurry wall was held in place by over 1,000 cables called tiebacks, drilled through the wall and anchored into bedrock. After the buildings were complete, the slurry wall was supported by the towers. The tiebacks, no longer needed, were cut. The slurry wall had literally been held up by the towers. But the towers were gone.
If that slurry wall had fallen, we would have had the Hudson River sitting in our lap. There's no way that we would have stopped the Hudson River from coming in there. It would have been a total disaster.
If it would have got into there, it would bound to have gotten into the path, into the 1 and 9 subway stations, the buildings around in the surrounding areas. All of them have substations, power to them. It could have been a real mess.
In fact, beneath the surface of Ground Zero was a 6-story subterranean world being combed by disaster experts looking for survivors or remains. The parking garage.
The slurry wall is directly behind the piece of street slurry wall.
The subway stations. Shops. The PATH train running under the Hudson River between New York and New Jersey. If the slurry wall gave way, it could all be underwater. Rick Ostrander of Local 1456 and other dock builders worked to replace the tiebacks to stabilize the slurry wall. It was touch and go for weeks, but somehow it held. It was perhaps the single greatest danger averted at Ground Zero. Many of the workers, worried that the heavy security would prevent them from getting back into the site, simply lived at Ground Zero, working, eating, sleeping, and worshiping among the uprooted community of Lower Manhattan. Tired, hungry, away from home, the construction workers were adopted by the neighborhood.
Living at Ground Zero, you really didn't want for anything.
But I remember we'd be driving home and they'd say, okay, you know what the guys down at Ground Zero could really use is some gloves. Well, the next day, there'd be tractor trailers with gloves from Ohio, from Alabama, South Carolina. It was absolutely incredible. Then you'd be driving home and they'd say, okay, the guys down at Ground Zero really don't need any more gloves, but what they really need is toothbrushes, toothpaste, and batteries. And then the same thing 2 days later, here they would come. It was absolute. It looked like from VZ Street to Canal Street, looked like the world's largest Kmart blue light special.
Everywhere you went, there was somebody taking care of you. I don't know how many times somebody sat me down and took my boots off and changed my socks for me.
Those kind of things, pick up your spirits, makes you realize there's somebody else knows what you're doing down there and appreciates what you're doing down there.
That's true. New Yorkers are mean and difficult and cynical on a non-crisis basis. But when push comes to shove, there comes a crisis. There comes a terrible tragedy such as the World Trade Center. New Yorkers, as they did since 1666, as we became a city, New Yorkers came together.
Eight and a half months after the attacks, the most important construction job in American history was near completion. The workers had not constructed a building or a bridge, but a hole. A large, clean, empty hole. By May 28, 2002, there was only one last steel column left to be removed. The construction trades decided to turn it into a small ceremony.
All the guys that were in the closing ceremony were people that had been down there since like the first day. So I think everybody that took part in that felt some kind of closure on that.
For many, many months, construction workers felt that they were cast aside. Specially trained iron workers were selected to be there from Local 40 and 15 to help assist in the removal. The foreman for that particular task was Willie Quinlan. He helped put in the first beam at age 20, and here, 34 years later, at the age of 54, he's taken the last beam out as a foreman.
We tucked the column down, we draped it with a flag, put it on the truck. You know, it was like a, you know, it was like more or less a burial or something.
Then the truck was driven towards the side, led by the pipe and drum band of the local 608, the Carpenters Union, to go back up the ramp. We figured, well, no one's going to watch us and care about us anyway. Well, lo and behold,
Present. Halt.
to the least of our expectations, while we're going up the ramp, we forgot to remind ourselves this was Fleet Week. And from the bottom of the drawbridge to the very top and all around, there were Marines and sailors, police officers, firefighters, Fourth officers standing in salute while we walked up in triumph. It was one of the most awe-inspiring moments, and to see the face of Willie Quinlan himself was going up that bridge and getting the American flag. He started with the World Trade Center. He finished taking out the last beam, and tears went down his eyes, and he says, "I'll help to rebuild this place."
The experience of cleaning up Ground Zero was like war. The horror, the determination, the camaraderie. And like the end of a war, going home when the job is over is not always easy.
This way the transformers are going to be right here.
Greg Nolan works just a few feet from Ground Zero, rebuilding World Trade Center 7. Rick Ostrander works on the renovation of Pier 39 in Brooklyn. Willie Quinlan is working on the Manhattan Bridge, replacing corroded old pins with new ones. Chris Pillai is working on the Con Edison building in Midtown. Hugh Smith had surgery on the shoulder he injured on September 11th. He is unable to work and is reconnecting with his family. None of them are the same.
There was a transition period when the cleanup was over. Some people walked away from this site and went on to other sites, went on to other jobs, and they ended up going from a 12-hour, 7-day-a-week disaster site to going back and working 40 hours a week with normal people. And a lot of them had a big problem with that. To go home, I felt I had a difficult time talking to friends of mine that were at home that they weren't here. They don't understand, you know. How do you tell people about what was going on, you know? Sometimes it's almost embarrassing to talk to people, you know, because if you're all day long, you know, putting people in bags and stuff like that, how do you talk to somebody at home about what you did all day long, you know? So, you know, you don't want to talk to them. So, you know, you clam up. You don't talk to anybody.
There for a while, he said he was suffering from post-traumatic stress, thinking about it all the time, and it being still a part of his life. And it was very difficult for him to go from that reality to this reality. He felt like he didn't fit in, he didn't belong, people didn't understand.
He had withdrawals. I think he was glad that it was over, but it was like, where do I go from here? And they had asked him to stay to help with the rebuild, and that was definitely something that he did not want to do.
If you're able to talk about it, you know, you're able to get over it, you're able to put it behind you. You know, it's the guys that aren't able to talk about it that I worry about, that I figure, you know, someday down the road, there's going to be some problems. There are some problems now with a lot of guys that left here.
I see him every once in a while. He'll kind of like look off, and I know he's thinking about it.
But like war, for most, The experience was deep and strangely positive.
I think they're kinder to the wives, more gentle towards the children, they're less judgmental and harsh towards other people, except when they're driving. Remember, this driver's range running over a pain in the ass. But I think they're more gentle and more understanding, compassionate than they normally were.
I mean, I look back and, I mean, I do get sad, I had my good cries and that, but I look back and I look at the good times I had there, the people I met.
Life will never be the same, ever.
I think it did change him. I think it made him more human, more sensitive to other people, more compassionate.
I think what really has changed the most in me is my perspective about the American people. There was a time in my life not too long ago that I thought maybe that we were on our way down and we weren't going to make it so well. I don't feel that way anymore.
You know, you felt like this is my time. You know, this is my time to do something for my country. You know, I was too young to go to Vietnam. I missed all of that, and it just and a lot of people, they just felt that this is their patriotic duty to do this.